Yes, most people believe that abductions are only in America. And in 1987, I came across my first abduction case in Yorkshire, in northern England. And at that time, very little on abductions in England was published anywhere. There was one or two cases that were well known. But apart from that, quite really nothing. So I decided there and then to try and acquire as many case histories from throughout the UK, both missing time cases and also abduction accounts. And at that point in time, I did not have any idea about publishing the cases. But around about 1990, I thought it would be a good idea to try and have as many of these cases in one publication, first and foremost for reference. So it was then we set about trying to obtain a publisher, and it took a number of years to do that. But in 1994, my first book, called Without Consent, which deals entirely with missing time and abduction cases in the UK, was published. We used 25 case histories in the book, although there are many more on record. We couldn't get them all in one publication. And since that time, of course, more cases have since materialised. So, whereas before we thought we only had about 40 such cases in the UK, that's probably doubled. The book had a lot of exposure in the newspapers, television and radio, which persuaded other people to contact on myself or other colleagues. And to such that we are now working on a follow-up book to Without Consent. The provisional title is Once Upon a Missing Time. As yet we've not obtained a publisher, but we've only just started to try and obtain their interest. And it will be a continuation of some of the work and some of the ideas based in Without Consent. So I'm looking forward to it.
And have you an opinion about the case of abductions? What sense could you tell us about your opinion? Or the opinion of Bufora and English time?
Bufora doesn't have a particular viewpoint as an organisation. My viewpoint is that I have no doubt that the abductions do take place. Some people are quite traumatised by the events. Some people react in a very positive manner, whilst others, differ in their after abduction accounts. So the nature and origin of the abductions still eludes me. One of the things we didn't get time to publish in the book, which I will talk about hopefully later today at the conference, is that we just took a small sample of 15 abductees in the UK, just 15, and we asked them what they believed had happened to them, what was the nature of their experience. It was quite surprising. Two of them said, yes, we feel we have definitely been abducted by aliens from somewhere else, not of this earth. Another two said they thought they'd had some kind of spiritual experience. One young man, who I will feature in my presentation today, thought it must have been the Russians. This was technology and hardware, and the British government wouldn't do this, they're far too nice. But he rationalised it, thinking it must be the Russians. But more surprisingly than this, the other 10 all simply said, I don't know. I had this most bizarre experience, or number of experiences, the likes of which they'd never had before, and they had no idea what had happened to them. They came to me looking for an answer, and of course I didn't have them. So even the people who had the experiences don't know, so it's difficult for me on the outside looking in to try and explain to them what may or may not have happened.
There is a particular case, a particular episode that you can tell us, because it is in English, it is here.
I think every case in the book stands up on its own merit. They're all unique, they're all different. But again, one of the cases I'll feature today involves only one young man, just one witness. He lives in North Wales, and at the time, in the late 1980s, he was walking home between two villages at 1 o'clock in the morning. He was 18 years old, unemployed, and he called it the main road he was walking on, but you or I would never call it a main road. It was just a small, unlit road. He knew the area extremely well. Normal fashion, the everyday sounds of the countryside around him disappeared. There was a light in a field up ahead, and he did not want to approach this light, but something compelled him to do so. There was a small track running adjacent to the road. He walked up the track. In a field adjacent to the track was this strange vehicle on the ground with two beings outside of it, strange shaped helmets on their head. And he was absolutely frozen with fear. He was then approached from behind. Someone took hold of his shoulders, took him towards this thing. Next thing he knows, he believes he's on board it somewhere in the atmosphere. You can see on a screen the planets disappearing past him. They do the usual examination, but they took a great deal of interest in his Sony Walkman, which he had on him. And even took the cassette from him and put it into a machine and played the music, and they were quite amused by this, apparently. But part of the examination was quite painful. Certainly on his wrists, for some reason he couldn't remember what had happened. The next thing he remembers, he's walking down the road, staggering almost, and he was picked up by a police car. A police patrol car picked him up. He was picked up by a police patrol car who took him home to his mother's, and he recounted the incident to his mother. He had no hypnosis, he could remember all this that had happened, and he was terrified to see that he actually had burns on his wrists. He didn't smoke at that time. The next day his mother went to the local library to see if she could find a book on UFOs. She managed to find one, and there was an address of a UFO group in Oxford for Contact International. She managed to find their telephone number and ring them and explain what had happened. That night, the second night, Nigel, the young man's name, he had nightmares about what had happened. He was still very, very frightened. So his mother put him in the car, drove him from North Wales in the snow, through the mountains and down into Oxfordshire, which is a long drive, to the headquarters of Contact International. They verified the burn marks and so on. I interviewed Nigel sometime afterwards. I interviewed him twice at some length at his home in Wales. When you talk to Nigel about his job, his family, his interests, he was a normal young man. But when you change the subject to his experience, he totally changed. Became nervous, did not like talking about it. It still disturbed him to such an event that eventually he had to have hypnotherapy, not regressive hypnosis, hypnotherapy to relieve the nightmares. He had nightmares for many, many months afterwards about the incident, and it quite literally terrified me. I managed to persuade him to take me to the location where it happened, but he clearly did not like being there. I have a photograph of him, and he's stands like this, and he does not want to be there. When we left the area, he calmed down again. He does not want anybody to know, his friends to know about